Amazon sells about 1 million of their Kindle e-ink e-readers every single year, and for the first time, they've now released a waterproof color e-ink version called the Kindle Colorsoft, and I figured it's high time we got a durability test. Plus, I want to see what Amazon's colored e-ink display looks like from under a microscope. The cool part about electronic ink is that it's always on even when it's off, just like an Etch-a-Sketch. Once a pixel is flipped, it can stay that way forever, which is fantastic for battery life, and Amazon claims this guy can last for 8 weeks on a single charge, although I have my doubts. Inside the box we have some paperwork and one single USB-C cable, and nothing else. Getting a closer look at the tablet, we turn on the already turned on e-reader, and it refreshes the pixels to bring us to the library. The refresh rate would be a tad distracting if we were to watch a video, but luckily the letters of an ebook or comic strip shouldn't be moving very much, unless you're at Hogwarts. The hardest pill for me to swallow though with e-readers, especially with Amazon specifically, is that you never actually own the books you buy. If we jump into this tiny T-Rex in the very dark, great book by the way, you can see down near the bottom that you're purchasing a license to the content and not purchasing the actual book. So when you pass on to the great bookstore in the sky, instead of a physical library being passed on to your kinfolk, your Kindle library just gets lost to the depths of Bezos' eternally deep pockets. Something to keep in mind when amassing your collections. Sometimes it is worth it to buy physical copies. However, there is something to be said for being able to carry 1,000 books in your pocket at a time, even though the average American reads less than 4 books a year, which explains a lot. The Kindle Colorsoft has a new feature allowing us to highlight using 4 colors, yellow, pink, blue, and orange, which is kinda nifty. I wouldn't call them vibrant or bright, definitely no Page Master Dragon if you catch my drift. But if we jump over to the microscopic view, we instantly see a few things. There is a top tapioca-looking anti-glare matte texture on the surface, and we'll find out if it's glass or plastic in just a second. Zooming past that upper texture, we get the RGB colored pixels, red, green, and blue, which when all combined at equal intensities makes white. This is true for LCD displays, OLED displays, and now colored e-ink displays. As we drift the microscope down the page, we see that the individual RGB shades vary in intensity as the colors we see with our eyes get generated. The red, blue, and black shades combine to make the pink tone, and blue is made up of the blue and green pixels with a hint of black. Yellow has green and red with black mixed in, and orange is just kind of a muddy mix of all the colors. Just for kicks and giggles, we can look at the liquid crystal display on my Casio F91W. Best watch ever made with a 7-year battery life, all for $14, and it tells the exact same time that a Rolex would. Liquid crystal displays are very similar to e-ink, except for that they need a constant source of electricity to maintain their visible shades, where e-ink only uses electricity to flip the pixels, and then they stay in that flip state forever. If Casio could go ahead and make an e-ink F91W, I would be so happy. Where was I? Oh yeah, the surface texture of the Colorsoft. If you remember, Apple also came out with a matte nano-textured iPad last year. The microscopic textured niblets on the iPad are about twice as fine as the niblets on the Colorsoft. Both are still able to reduce light glares and mimic the feel of paper just fine. Now, it was about here before the scratch test that I forgot to hit record on my camera for just a few seconds. But if you bear with me while I recreate the scratch test as if it's happening for the first time, that would be great. I try to only make one mistake every 10 years, so we should be good for a while after this. And whoa, scratches at a level 3 with deeper grooves at a level 4. Nobody saw that coming. Turns out that unlike the nano-textured iPad, this Amazon Colorsoft is made with a plastic top layer, which is fine, right? Plastic doesn't shatter. But also, now that we know it's plastic, it wouldn't be wise to just toss it into a purse full of keys or razor blades, like one often does. The cool thing about this new Colorsoft is that Amazon is dabbling in waterproofing, and they might have made an error calling it waterproof on their website instead of just water resistant. That might ruffle some feathers at some point since it is only IPX8. The ingress protection comes from a long strip of rubber sealing the edges of the display to the body of the Colorsoft. And historically, rubber does provide pretty good protection, so far so good. To go along with the plastic screen, the body of the Color Kindle is also constructed with plastic. If this is your first time watching one of my durability tests, welcome, and it only gets weirder from here. The single power button is down near the bottom 9-watt USB-C port, and if you're going to be listening to an audiobook, there are no onboard speakers. You'll have to use a Bluetooth connection. Now, one thing I've been fascinated with lately is how fast civilization has been innovating and improving. Like, yeah, e-ink displays are pretty epic and will only improve from here on out, but did you know that the ice cream cone was only invented in 1903, like barely 100 years ago? It's wild to think that nobody before the 1990s ever had an ice cream cone, and yeah, with the way things are going, we might not have ice cream cones again in the future, but for right now, we are in this brief period of history that has ice cream cones. And that's pretty epic. Thumbs up for that. The Amazon A to Z Smile logo on the back is a little psychedelic, probably a subtle nod to the colored pixels on the front, and it's inlaid and recessed into the back plastic panel. It's pretty well glued in, so I don't imagine it falling out on its own. Now, the Colorsoft tablet actually has two different resolutions, 30 pixels per inch in black and white, and 150 ppi in color, which is very similar to the specs of the Kaleido display we saw in the Boox Note Air 3 tablet. I imagine that Amazon is sourcing their hardware from the same company. Either way though, the Colorsoft has 94 nits of brightness and starts to melt after about 16 seconds under the heat from my lighter. Again, confirming its plastic construction. With no external cameras or fingerprint readers to check, it's time for the bin test. Historically, we haven't had an e-reader survive, but with a solid flex from the back and no catastrophic cracking, the Colorsoft might just be the first. Bending from the front, we get some more massive flexing, but again, no cracks. And bending vertically, this is where the iPad failed, again, nothing. I mean, yeah, it's nice that it survived and all, but I really wanted to get a look at that colored pixel layer inside. So it looks like we'll have to continue this operation. Luckily, during the bin test, we did learn that the sides of the Colorsoft are flexible enough to pull away from the screen. There's no tools or heat required, which is nice. And it looks like the battery is uncharacteristically installed upside down. I know that's going to bug a few people. Its redeeming quality, though, is that it's made with 100% recycled cobalt. Amazon has been nice enough to include a wireless charger on the back, which is new. The copper coils can pull power from the wireless charging stand without actually having to plug it in. Now, the ultimate proof that the e-ink pixels remain on even with no power is when I unplug the Kindle's battery. Normally an LCD or OLED would just turn dark after the power source has been removed, but not this tablet. The colors remain on and intact, even after the battery is disconnected. The battery itself, though, is extremely well glued into the frame, and yeah, the squared off ridges of the internal frame are probably what keep the whole thing from snapping in half, but gluing the battery in is still a bad move and should generally be frowned upon. Electronics are way harder to recycle when the battery is not removable. There is one gold ribbon cable running to the top edge of the display. This is probably for the light sensor, which helps automatically dim the display based on how bright the ambient light is. I'll unplug the thicker gold-colored display ribbon, just like a little Lego, and we can zoom in on the waterproof 9-watt USB-C charging port. There are no rubber rings around the opening, just a smidgen of white rubber goop sealing up the backside, and personally, after seeing this from the inside, I wouldn't trust it to be all that watertight. There's nothing keeping the water from entering around the edges of that port, which means reading in the bathtub is probably a bad idea. The rubber gaskets around each of the Lego-style ribbon connectors is pretty cool though. I've never seen a hot pink gasket before. Even though this is probably a Kaleido screen slapped on a Kindle, it'll still be interesting to see how the color filter array turns the black and white microcapsules into a colored image. The thick top plastic layer obviously does not have any of the colored pixels attached to it. It doubles as the touch-sensitive panel that allows the tablet to know where our fingers are. And if things weren't broken before, they most definitely are now. The color filter array is actually a rubberized film that's adhered to the top of the microcapsules. Extremely resilient and tear-resistant, you can see the black and white e-ink display materialize from underneath as the color filter is removed. And yes, indeed, this feels as satisfying as it looks. My only complaint is that it doesn't make any noise while getting taken off. If we grab our microscope friend again and peek at the film itself without the microcapsules behind them, we can see all the colors still in place, like tinted sunglasses, and the black and white microcapsules below that work to illuminate the color filter above. Super interesting stuff. I, for one, approve of this colorful e-ink technology, and I hope to see more of it in the future. Would you rock a colored e-ink smartphone, or do you prefer the fast-paced, brightly colored OLEDs that we have today? Thanks a ton for watching, and I'll see you around.